Hello movie lovers. Welcome back to Recap Queen. In this video, we will explain Rise of the Planet of the Apes. This movie tells the story of a chimpanzee who has intelligence and is able to fight humans. Will the apes rule the world? Let's find out in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Rise of the Planet of the Apes begins by showing a pharmaceutical chemist named Rodman testing a drug based on the ALZ-112 virus on chimpanzees at a biotechnology company called Genesis. Will is observing how the drug works on a chimpanzee named Bright Eyes. He was surprised because Bright Eyes became very smart after being given the drug ALZ-112. Seeing the surprising changes in Bright Eyes, Will then reported the results of his research to his boss, Stephen Jacobs. Will insists that they must continue research to test the drug ALZ-112 in humans. But Stephen said that Will's research must get approval from the board because the research project costs a lot of money. A few days later, Will was getting ready to present the drug ALZ-112 he was developing before the council. ALZ-112 is a virus-based drug that functions as a gene therapy that allows the brain to regenerate its own cells. Will also claims that the drug ALZ-112 he is developing will be able to cure diseases related to the brain, including Alzheimer's disease. When Bright Eyes was about to be brought out to be the object of a presentation, the female chimpanzee suddenly went berserk and attacked the employees in the research room. Bright Eyes managed to escape from her cage and broke into the meeting room by breaking the window pane. Suddenly Will and the council members were shocked and frightened because Bright Eyes had gone wild and out of control. One of the guards then opened fire at Bright Eyes to stop the chimpanzee, but unfortunately, Bright Eyes died instantly. Stephen, very upset that Will's research project has failed miserably, finally orders Franklin, Will's assistant in charge of taking care of the chimpanzees, to get rid of all the chimpanzees by euthanizing them all. Franklin then goes to Will and reveals that Bright Eyes became aggressive and uncontrollable because she had just given birth to a baby chimpanzee. Franklin then asks Will for help to save Bright Eyes' baby because he can't bear to kill it and hasn't found a proper shelter for the baby chimpanzee. Will took the baby chimpanzee and brought it home. Arriving home, Will's father, Charles, welcomed the baby chimpanzee happily. One day, Charles said that he had lost his car keys, but Will then replied that his father had not driven a car in a long time. Charles had Alzheimer's all along. That's why Will is very ambitious to perfect the drug ALZ-112 to cure his father. Will then realizes that the baby chimp is quite smart when he can hold his bottle properly without anyone's help. Will then assumes that the baby Bright Eyes inherited his mother's intelligence due to exposure to the drug ALZ-112 before birth. Therefore, Will decided to raise him. 3 years later, Bright Eyes' baby, Caesar, gets smarter as he grows. At 18 months, Caesar could recognize 24 words. And at the age of 2, he can complete puzzles and model toys specifically for children aged 8 years and over. Not only that, Caesar can also communicate with Will through sign language. Will then assumes that the drug ALZ-112 has improved Caesar's brain function so that he is getting smarter day by day. One day, Charles got angry at his nurse because his Alzheimer's disease was getting worse. Will, who feels sorry for his father's condition, finally decides to steal 4 serums containing the drug ALZ-112 from his workplace. That night, he injects the drug into Charles, and the following day, Will is very happy that his father can play the piano again. That means the drug ALZ-112 can already be used in humans because it has been proven to restore the cognitive abilities of his father who has Alzheimer's. But Will still has to observe the drug's performance on his father for further research. Caesar was very curious to play with the neighbors' children outside the house because he had only seen them from the window in his room all this time. One day, Caesar saw a bicycle being ridden by one of the kids. The chain broke and the boy was very sad because he could no longer ride a bicycle. Caesar, who saw it, then desperate to leave the house and intend to fix the broken bicycle chain. But Will's neighbors think Caesar is about to hurt his son. The man hit Caesar. Luckily, Will quickly came and saved Caesar. However, Caesar was seriously injured. Will then takes him to the zoo to see a veterinarian he knows there. At the zoo clinic, Dr. Caroline treats Caesar, who is very surprised that he can communicate with Will using sign language. Like Will, Caroline gradually became interested in Caesar and Caesar seemed to like her. A few days later, Will and Caroline take Caesar to the redwood groves of Muir Forest National Monument so that he can roam in the wild. Caesar seemed happy to jump from one tree to another. Moreover, the forest is also very wide, so he is freer to play. Will and Caroline, who saw it from below, felt happy like a proud parent for their child. 5 years later, Caesar, now a juvenile chimpanzee, questions whether he is Will's pet, but Will said that Caesar was not a pet. Caesar hints that he misses his parents and wants to know where he came from. Will then takes Caesar to Genesis, Will's workplace, which is also where Caesar was born. Will then informs that Caesar's mother has died. Caroline, who also just found out about Caesar's origins, then advises Will that Caesar's problems might negatively impact many people. Meanwhile, Charles' Alzheimer's disease recurred. It turned out that the human immune system could kill the virus contained in ALZ-112, so Charles became resistant to the drug ALZ-112. As a result, Charles' condition worsened. Meanwhile, Caesar injured an aggressive neighbor, Douglas Hunsaker, who was angry with the confused Charles. Caesar bit the man's finger off. Because of the assault, Caesar was eventually charged and taken to a primate shelter to await a trial for a while. At the shelter, Caesar is bullied by the ruling alpha chimpanzee there named Rocket. Not only that, the superintendent of the place named Dodge Landon also often tortured and often mocked his appearance, which was different from other apes. On the other hand, Stephen developed the drug ALZ-112 into a more powerful and gaseous version called ALZ-113. They also tested the drug on a chimpanzee named Koba. But the wild Koba, rebelling and struggling, causes Franklin's mask to fall off. After successfully calming Koba down, Will and the others manage to make Koba inhale ALZ-113 medicinal gas, and the chimpanzee passes out. Back at the shelter, Caesar is being bullied by the other chimps because they obey Rocket. Landon even has to take action by drugging Caesar and Rocket. Caesar seemed unable to stand living in the shelter and missed Will's house. But when Will and Caroline visit him at the shelter, Will says he can't bring Caesar home right now. Caesar then becomes increasingly sad and disappointed because he feels neglected by Will. Back at the Gen-Sis Research Center, Stephen seemed satisfied because the performance of the drug ALZ-113 on Koba began to show significant results. Koba's intelligence is increasing rapidly over time. Even Koba can write Stephen's last name perfectly. Will then observed Koba's progress and Will brought home some of the drugs for his father's treatment. One day, Landon took his friends on a tour of the primate shelter. Landon seemed very happy to torture the primates in the cage, including Caesar. But unbeknownst to Landon and his friends, Caesar is after something from them. One of Landon's friends taunts Caesar and the chimpanzees attack him. It turned out that Caesar deliberately pulled the young man closer to his cage to steal the penknife in the pocket. That night, Caesar managed to open the cage door with the penknife and free a gorilla named Buck. With Buck's help, Caesar could defeat Rocket and claim the position as the alpha chimpanzee ruler of the apes. That same night, Charles, who refused Will's ALZ-113 medication and also refused any treatment for his worsening illness, finally breathed his last peacefully in his bed. The next day, Will decides to leave the drug research project ALZ-113 because he has a disagreement with Stephen about testing in humans. Stephen immediately wants to test the drug on humans, while Will refuses because he still has to do more research on Koba. On the other hand, Franklin had been absent from work for 2 days due to illness. The man assumed that the pain he was feeling was the effect of being exposed to ALZ-113 before. Franklin tries to warn Will, but he sneezed blood. Not long after, he was dead. After work, Will immediately rushes to the primate shelter to redeem Caesar and bring the chimpanzee home. But Caesar instead decided to stay in the primate shelter. That night, Caesar sneaked out of the primate shelter after successfully unlocking the cage security door access, the code of which he had memorized in advance. Caesar then heads to Will's house and steals a canister of ALZ-113 medicine from Will's house. Caesar rushed back to the primate shelter and spread the medicinal gas to increase the intelligence of the other apes in the shelter. The next day, Caesar checked the condition of the monkeys one by one, and they all got smarter after being gassed by Caesar. Caesar and the monkeys immediately gathered to arrange a plan. When Landon electrocutes Caesar and tries to bring him back to the cage, Caesar speaks for the first time, shouting no. Then fights Landon while freeing the other apes from their cage. Caesar accidentally causes Landon's death when the man tries to electrocute him, and instead Landon himself is electrocuted to death. Caesar and the monkeys then headed to Gen-Sis and freed Koba and the remaining monkeys from Gen-Sis. Caesar and his flock freed more monkeys from the San Francisco Zoo. Will and Caroline come to a primate shelter and are shocked to see the chaos in the place. Landon was dead and the apes had fled the shelter, including Caesar. Will then approached one of the surviving guards and asked what had happened. The guard said that the ape can talk and confirmed to Will that Caesar spoke. Will was very surprised to hear that. Caesar and his pack of apes immediately invaded the city, roaming the streets, causing people to panic. Even the police have trouble stopping them because Caesar and his army are so smart that they can avoid the police and strategize. It turns out that Caesar and his army will head to the Redwood Forest and intend to control the forest area. Will and Caroline had anticipated this because Caesar loved the Redwood Forest. They rushed to the Redwood Forest through the Golden Gate Bridge. The battle between the apes led by Caesar and the police was inevitable. Caesar and the apes fight their way through the police blockade on the Golden Gate Bridge in an attempt to escape into the Redwood Forest. When the gorillas intend to kill the police by destroying their bodies, Caesar immediately stops him and signals the gorillas not to kill humans. Caesar then devised a strategy by instructing several chimpanzees to climb over the misty Golden Gate Bridge so that they would not be seen by the police below. Meanwhile, Caesar leads the gorillas on the bridge to push the bus towards the police blockade. When the police focused on the bus being pushed by the gorilla, the chimpanzees, who had previously climbed onto the bridge, immediately descended into the police blockade and attacked all the police there. Caesar and his army managed to break the blockade made by the police, so the apes could cross the bridge. Will, who had arrived at the bridge, then called Caesar and caused the chimpanzee not to notice Stephen's shot, which was aimed directly at him. To save Caesar, Buck jumps into the police helicopter Stevens was traveling in and destroys the helicopter at the cost of his life. Caesar was devastated by the death of Buck, who had saved his life. Stevens pleads with Caesar to save him, but Caesar ignores him. Then Koba came and pushed Stevens into the Golden Gate Strait. Caesar and the monkeys finally arrived at the Redwood Forest. Will, who was chasing them in a stolen police car, also arrives there. Will then warns Caesar that the humans will hunt them down and begs him to come home with him. In response, Caesar instead hugged Will and said, "Caesar is at home." Will is surprised to hear that Caesar can actually speak like a human. Will finally realizes that this is their last farewell and respects Caesar's wishes. Will returned home alone. Meanwhile, Caesar and his army set the Redwood Forest as the home and territory of the apes, where he is the leader, and the film ends.